I mean, I can't believe that the tariff today on China went from 104 to 125%. I mean, that's no good for anybody and good for them, no good for us either. But, of course, they're negotiating whatever they're negotiating. All I can say is this. Look, you got a lot of very wealthy people involved, including at the highest rate here with Trump and the rest of the people. Don't forget about us little people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, this kind of shit has taken down complete families.
Welcome to the Kahler Podcast. Today, we're going to discuss these tariffs that everybody's been talking about and get some real world examples from somebody who actually lived through it. We're going to find out the ins and the outs of manufacturing overseas versus manufacturing in the United States, the pros and cons of each. How you doing today, Gary?
I'm doing good.
We'll get right into this, and what we're talking about here, for those that don't know, is the X-Trem. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the X-Trem, Gary?
X-Trem was formed because all the OEMs in about 2010, 2011, they wanted something more inexpensive, cheaper to buy. I thought, I had this brilliant idea. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll do that, because we were losing business with OEMs in the U.S. because they were buying bridges offshore for a lot less money than we could make them in the United States. So I got the idea that I would find a manufacturer. In this case, it was in China, but it could have been anywhere. And take my technology over there, and I would make a more inexpensive Kahler.
Now, for somebody that's been so fiercely made in America for so long, that seems like a move that you wouldn't do unless you absolutely had to. How many years did you make the X-Trem in China?
It only lasted about 2.5, 3 years. But the main reason I went over there is simply I couldn't sell American-made trim to OEMs in any kind of order. Matter of fact, over a period of 3 years, I'd lost over $1 million on my most inexpensive I could make in the U.S. Everybody was going for a trim that was made overseas. And as we know, Floyd Rose had many licenses out there, and as a result, there was a whole myriad of people making them. So they would put those on to keep the price points down.
Tariffs right now are something that everybody's talking about, and I just want to find out, did you ever deal with any changes in tariffs with your limited time dealing with China stuff?
No, I did not. Tariffs weren't a big deal then. As we all know, like Korea is the most favored nation, and China, well, there was ways of bringing it in on a guitar, which you didn't have to pay even, a tariff on it either way. So, matter of fact, the reason I had to make this X-Trem over there is because in order for me to get a Kahler on a guitar made in Asia, or for that matter, Indonesia as well, we would have to send from the United States, and we would send from the United States a lot of money there in freight and the rest of it. But the big deal was, in order to get around the tariff going into the country or whatever it was, you have to move them in under bond. So that was important.
Can you explain what that means, under bond?
Well, under bond simply means that you have to make out a little paperwork, and we would ship it into China, ship it into a number of these different countries, and bond them, and bond these pieces to that company so that there was an absolute proof that this was made in America, so that it could come back into America and there would not be any tariffs put on it or any kind of entry fees, because since it was made here, it could come back into the U.S. without having to pay extra money to any of the governments, including the U.S. But that was the only way we could move it. And that was very expensive to have to do that and keep track of all this, because we would sell the tremolo or the product from Kahler and it would go on a guitar. So now when it come back on a guitar, there was issues about, well, where is this piece on here? So it got to be kind of a hassle.
If there's any one thing that I've learned here, it's that tooling is expensive. It's a huge expense. Did you pay for the tooling in China?
Well, you really don't know for sure. In other words, what you do is quote a price. This is a target price that wants something made at, and then they either raise the price or they don't. But there, in my particular case, there was never a separate billing for tooling of any kind. So I would suggest that the factory that made them for me in China, in this case, paid for that tooling. Government paid for that tooling. Whoever paid for it, because they were very interested in just putting their people to work, and so they got a lot of support and a lot of subsidies, from the governments in order to make my price point that I had to have. Yes.
So you said two things in there. You have to get a quote and you have a target price. Can you tell us what those
things
mean?
Well, a target price, for instance, if it took X amount of money, let's just say $100 bill,
okay,
to make an X-Trem in the United States, then I might say, well, if you're making it in China, and I'm looking at the price differentials about what the OEMs are buying for, and so I have to make a price point to the OEM buyer. So instead of it being $100, maybe they have to make it for $50, $45, $35, whatever I could sell them for in the U.S., so that I would be on a level playing field with all the other people they were buying from. So whatever that took, that's a target price would have to be. They would make them at that. And then we would simply ship them, in this case, China to China, China to Malaysia, China to Korea, China to wherever. And then we'd have to pay the duty or whatever it would be if it shipped out of China into some other country. Well, everybody then would have to pay whatever that duty or tariff was.
So what happens if the product is made in China and it stays in China? Does that affect how much it costs you?
Well, that was something I would just say that we were not really brought really aware of until everything that was exported out of China or even out of Asia, in some cases Japan, that would be one price. But if it ever stayed in that country, then that would be a different price. And, well, that was just something that was all in the paperwork. And like if you bought something for $25, maybe that would be $30 if it stayed in the country. Meaning exporting was doggone important to everybody, and let's not have it stay in the country.
So it was actually more expensive to make your product in China and then sell it to a Chinese customer.
You would rather than export it on a guitar out of that country and into the United States or Europe or wherever you were going with it.
What problems did you experience doing business with China as a small entrepreneur?
As you well know, if you're going to make something there and it's your product, then you got to teach everybody how to do it. So I spent a couple of times going particularly to the machine shops, and they do it a different way than we do here, but they got to look at it, the quality of the machine work and all that, and then you go to the polishing, and you teach them how you want it polished, and then finally you go to the plating companies, and you teach them this is the way it's got to be on our product. There's a whole process, educational process you got to go through, and we're hearing about it on the news today. You can see how we have to give up a lot of stuff to make all that work. And that isn't just with China, that's with other people as well. But the fact is that the people that I work with, as a matter of fact, they were lock manufacturers. And they were really good people. The Chinese people there, they were good people, and they had a partner here in the United States. It was one of those 4951 deals or whatever it is that you go and set up a deal. And they were very good. They made us a good product. They did that. And I know for a fact that everything that they made, I knew exactly to the piece what it was. Our problems were this, that when we started to go to all the different OEMs in the United States. They're having different things made in different factories, let's say in China or Indonesia. The interesting thing is that, let's say they had 500 guitars coming. Well, we wouldn't know how many guitars, but that particular factory would order like 200 more, like you'd have 700, 800 units going to this factory. Well, if only 500 guitars come out of it, where'd that other 300 or 400 go? Well, I want to tell you, they ended up on eBay and eventually on Alibaba, and they're still there. And many of them are real X-Trems that the guitar factory that made it overbought them and then sold them. They made a pile of money doing it, as a matter of fact.
That sounds pretty illegal. Did you ever catch these people? Did you ever catch who stole these bridges and then sold them illegally?
Yeah, but you see, due to the nature of social media and the social markets or whatever you want to call them, anybody even in their bedroom can buy something and resell it. That's easy for people to do, and they'll do it, whether it's legal, not legal, whatever. Finding out who they are and where they sold it and where each individual one of these came from is an absolute, just a nightmare. And it's just really bad news because you can't really do anything about it. You can raise all kinds of hell. Now, if I had people that actually made these pieces for me and they were doing it, well, I damn well could do something about it. But then we sold the pieces to the guitar factories because what we were doing is shipping from China to China or China to Malaysia, Indonesia. We had no idea where or how those guitar factories were distributing an extra 200 to 300. It would be from a number of different people. All I know is that they were there.
Sounds like a international game of whack-a-mole.
It really is, and it ruins companies, particularly little companies. You know, we hear all the time about the big car companies today and the chip makers doing billions and billions and billions of dollars. Well, look, we're just dealing with $1,000, $10,000, $100,000 is a big deal, and we're just little people. Well, there's millions of us out there that thought we could do the same thing, and I guarantee you, they lost their ass. Because once it was out there, then you get them copying them. Other people, new counterfeiters, just come out and do it. Pretty soon, then they're going to go to the better parts you make. The professionals, they'll copy them. Pretty soon, you just don't have a line anymore. I mean, you just got really screwed internationally, and it seemed to always be acceptable. Yet you could hire an attorney for $400 or $500 an hour or more and say, "Oh yeah, we'll find him." Well, yeah, you find one, close them down, and now there's 3 more come up. So you're just screwed. That's how that is.
Now, the X-Trem might very well be the most counterfeited Kahler of them all. How does the X-Trem counterfeiting problem now compare to the Takeuchi problem back in the early 80s?
Well, the early 80s, that was easy. Takeuchi was making them all. Mm-hmm. And we found out who he was. We knew the American that had sent him one sample, which he bought from a wholesaler in the United States, of all things, sent him the sample, and Takeuchi just simply manufactured them for this American. I was able to find out. We had to trace them all down. Who is it? Why is it? Why did they do this or that? And then I, of course, as you know, I went to Japan and I sued them and won the lawsuit on Japanese soil, which sort of really gave me a bad name in Japan. All the really big makers, they didn't like that. Although I won that lawsuit, all I can say to that was a one-up deal in the very beginning. Almost put me out of business within months, and that would have been in the early 80s. Now, you take this new counterfeit, it's a different deal. What they've done is to take the X-Trem and stencil not only my name on it, but I mean stenciled right on there, Kahler registered USA. Now, that is illegal as hell. And if we can find out who that manufacturer is, we can. But that will cost tens of thousands of dollars to find out who that is. Now, by you take them to court, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars involved. Well, if you're doing a couple $1 million a year, you damn well can't afford that kind of expense. So what do? They just get away with it. And it's a counterfeit. And true counterfeit. It looks exactly like it, only it has a stencil name on it.
As the in-house guitar tech now for a little over a year here at Kahler, I have a few things that I'd like to say about these counterfeits. The first one is that they are very convincing to look at. If you don't know exactly what you're looking at, you will think that you've got a legit X-Trem when in fact it's counterfeit, and they're incompatible. Our parts don't fit their parts, and if you ever wear anything out, then all of a sudden this great deal you had becomes a paperweight because they don't support those things. They are all metric.
And we're all SAE.
They've got the stencil. There's all kinds of other things. It costs this company a lot of money just in lost man hours of trying to figure out what is going on. And then when we finally figure out this is a counterfeit, a lot of time, the people get angry and they will insist that it's not.
No, they will insist this is a Kahler. It's just, then we got to say,
right
well, okay, measure the width of that saddles. And in meters or SAE, look at the rollers. This last counterfeit, they did such a good job on it that it's just very difficult. I mean, people like that really ought to be locked up. I mean, they're stealing money from us, stealing and lying to all the people out there, at least, that are buying and thinks they're Kahler. The biggest expense to us is we get these phone calls. They say, well, I just ordered another arm, and it won't fit.
And it won't fit.
Because the counterfeit is in metric, and our arm is in SAE. All of a sudden, we get these parts going back and forth, and we also have a pissed off customer. I mean, it's just can just really be bad for a small company. Let's say somebody doing under $1.5 million a year. You can't afford this kind of stuff. Yeah. It just doesn't work.
It can be a morale killer too if we're sitting there dealing with it.
It sure is.
With all of those problems, now obviously it wasn't worth it because in less than 3 years you completely shut down. You pulled out of China. Did the OEMs actually put the low-cost Kahlers on their guitars? Was it worth it, at least by that metric?
Well, all I can say is that after the first orders that I had from all the OEMs in 2010, 2011, maybe it amounted to $500,000 worth. I sold that when I found out what was going on, all my stuff showing up on the social media. That's just a line killer. Just kills everything you're doing. If it's on a guitar, that's one thing. And I want to take care of the American manufacturer that wants to put on a guitar. But I went there, and all of a sudden, I was all over the social media. They did not go on guitars. Now, I want to express that that's not the fault of the American manufacturer there that was doing that. That was the factory that was making those. Somehow, they found a way to get it on the social media. And so enough was enough. It come 2013, and I just said, sort of, fuck it. I mean, because this was a real big loser. And I moved to Las Vegas, set up business in Las Vegas. I said, the OEM ain't going to buy from me. The fact is, I'm out of business. So what I got to do now is to set up Las Vegas and go to the end user. And so that's what I did. Now, we've been here since 2013, and my first year in business here as a retailer was about $170,000. It was sort of over $1 million less in business in 1 year. Try to explain that to tax people and your accountant. That's pretty difficult to do. But since then, we've been building it up. And so our new way of doing things around here is the reason you're here. And we're selling to end users. Yes, We are selling also to some OEMs. Now they're coming back, paying the higher prices, and not as many as we did. But I think that's generated from the end user. It's from these podcasts that we're doing right here. And the guys out there are saying, hey, wait a minute. I didn't know this about it. I didn't even know about it, because if you don't have your product on an OEM product, if it's not showing up on a BC Rich, a Fender, Gibson, or whatever, like it always did before, they just don't see the name that much. It's, oh my God, you're still in business. Even with the new stuff today that we hear about on tariffs, which is outrageous, the other side of it still exists. The stealing of all the technology, the phony marketing, the bullshit where certain people advertise from the United States, and believe it or not, they're saying it's America made us everything. And what do? They get a brown box coming out of China. And we've bought a couple of those and traded. What I mean is we traded them out for the guys that finally found out that they were not real Kahlers, that they were counterfeits.
That actually brings up a good point. Kahler has probably the best and the most aggressive way to deal with these counterfeits. You can surrender your counterfeit to Kahler for 20% of the price of a legitimate new Kahler. You can also do that with an old worn out Kahler and some of the older counterfeits, and even some of the things that are not technically a counterfeit, like the Washburn Wonder Bar or the AccuTune 2. They're not as blatant as, say, the AccuTune 1 or the Takeuchi, but we still will give you that 20% off if you give it to us so we can get these things off the street.
When it's exact, as we call it in the legal business, trade dress.
Yeah.
From a distance, it looks exactly the same. That's as illegal as hell. The people that are merchandising that, doing that whole thing, is the underground. And they're, as far as I'm concerned, a part of a mob. And they really ought to be arrested and jailed, because they're just stealing $100 bills from us, a very small little American country. But that's just bullshit. I mean, that should not be possible. And today you can't afford to go after them because the legal thing costs too much. It just costs too much. And then you stop one, you got 3 other ones going. What's going on today is pretty important in trying to change trade etiquette, let's say it that way. I don't know if that's what it is or not, but the new tariff wars that are going on right now, will that help the small businessman? Well, I'll tell you what, not this year or next year. It may trickle down, but because we're so small, doing under $1 million, under $2 million, who gives a shit? I mean, basically that's it. Everybody's going to do the same damn stuff they've been doing, unless there's some laws that come into this country that says you can't do that, and the government's going to go find these sons of bitches.
This actually really reminds me of the really bad problem that we have right now with absolute garbage counterfeit guitars coming out of China. Most people know them as Chibsons, which is slang for a Chinese Gibson. They don't stop there. They do Chibonez, Chickenbacker, Chender, all these other things. And there are entire Facebook groups dedicated to people that are proud of the fact that they are buying an illegal counterfeit that is so illegal to buy in this country that when you buy one, you're buying it off of Temu or Wish or Alibaba, and they don't show a picture of the headstock because that would make it illegal. You know what you're getting, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah. And then when they get the thing, they see that it, sure enough, it's got the Gibson logo on it. And I actually lost a friend over one of these things, and I went through, and what should have taken me 45 minutes took me 3 weeks. And I told him, this thing is an absolute dog. It's horrible, man.
But you know, Eddie, that same guitars you're talking about, they'll put counterfeit Kahlers on them.
Oh, you're damn right.
And they'll look just like it's a real deal. And by God, they get away with it. I would hope that every major manufacturer in the United States would do something about that. All they can. Us little people, I just can't afford it. It just puts you right out of business.
I actually think that the only way that we're going to beat this counterfeit thing is if there is so much shame nailed to owning one of these things that is just stealing. Because when you think about it, it's just stealing. They just think, oh, well, you charge $3,000 for this, but I can get it for $300
That's right.
from here. The obvious things are obvious. You know, the cost of living in the United States is higher, this, that, the other. But the things that they don't think about is that part of that high price is paying for all of the prototyping where you were losing money. You weren't making it as you're trying to create this thing. And then the counterfeiter just gets one that you've already put countless thousands of dollars in.
He didn't do anything. No. All he did was buy one and copy it. That's what happened.
And that is bullshit.
It is.
And anybody who supports that should be fucking ashamed of themselves.
They ought to be, end users including. We're trying to make these end users and everybody aware of this problem. Believe me, that is no deal. Because for us here at Kahler, we've got to spend at least $100 to $150 a day just on phony calls, emails, texts. Well, what have I got? So what my guys do, the very first thing is, hey, look, take a top shot pic of that and a profile pic of it, and we'll tell you what we got, because generally we can tell about 90% of the time. And boy, do we hear the stuff on the other end of the phone. I mean, it's really pretty amazing. One thing I could say about small business, it was a 1982 or 1983 at McCormick Place when first in Chicago, when I first come out with this. Do you know, at that first show, I wrote almost $3 million worth of business.
I know, and then you had a hard time getting the financing to actually build it, right?
Yeah, we didn't have that kind of financing then, so it took me a couple of years to build it up to where we could get her done. In that time is when the man from the United States here, who I know pretty damn well, took one piece and sent it to Takeuchi. Takeuchi actually sold over 22,000 pieces, and I hadn't even shipped 1,200 yet.
What a dirtbag that guy was.
Well, it really was a dirtbag. But think about where that company could be, our company could be today, if we didn't have to put up with these fucking counterfeiters.
You mean if everybody followed the rules?
Well, they don't follow the rules, but my point is simply this. I sit here, and it just really pisses me off every single minute of the day, thinking this company could have been a $10 million company. And here it is. We're struggling right around $1 million. And believe me, that's not a lot of money in this business with everything. So everything is difficult because of counterfeiting and copying and lying. And who can make it for the cheapest price, you know? Pretty soon you can buy a Floyd Rose out there for what, $25? $20. $20 on Alibaba? Well, my God.
Shit, on Amazon, man, on a legit...
even though, Floyd Rose is a competitor of ours, I just take these people, find them, and do whatever you got to make them stop doing what they're doing, because this is just bullshit.
Yeah, it's important to let everybody know right now that even though Floyd Rose is a competitor, you actually have nothing bad to say about Floyd D. Rose, the man, or Andy Papiccio, the guy who currently runs Floyd Rose.
No, they're good people. Well, I don't have much respect for the attorneys, but including my own. But all I can say is it was too bad we had to go all through those wars and stuff. And they were all legal things, which led to this unfortunate situation we now have in the United States. And I might say this, it's being addressed today. We see it every day. I mean, I can't believe that the tariff today on China went from 104 to 125%. I mean, that's no good for anybody, and good for them, no good for us either. But, of course, they're negotiating whatever they're negotiating. All I can say is this. Look, you got a lot of very wealthy people involved, including at the highest rate here with Trump and the rest of the people. Don't forget about us little people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, this kind of shit has taken down complete families. Nobody could understand, why do you stay in this business when you're getting screwed over every day by counterfeits and just illegal trading? Well, it's my heart is in it. I love what I do. I love all the customers that buy our stuff. Thank God they bought our stuff. And we have well over 1,260,000 units out there that are working. We sell parts on them. I like to see the parts come. Yeah, and I'm getting older than age, so I'd kind of like to see somebody with an investment take over the business and do well before I take the big trip.
Actually, this is something that I think everybody should know. We are working so hard to make sure that the company carries on after Gary's gone. And his main reason is so that all the current customers can always get parts for their bridges.
Yeah, and the new, we have many new, really cool R&D stuff.
Oh, that's my favorite part.
I know, and we haven't even introduced them because I got to spend all this money to get it patented and everything. And then even at my age, when I look at it, why the hell am I doing this? Because we're going to put it out there, and these assholes out there are simply going to counterfeit it. And they're going to, if we're selling it for $100, they're going to sell it for 25. They're on the right track, actually, of politically cleaning it up. I won't say that I'm a Republican or a Democrat or whatever. I just want this done. I don't care who did it. If it was Republicans, Democrats, or independents, my God, this has got to stop because it's putting the American working family out of business. I have people that have worked with me for over 45 years. Their sons have come to work with me. Now, why should their father teach them how to run these mills and all these feeds and speeds and know how to do that tooling and everything else, going into an environment where, the minute I put it out there, I'll lose my ass. I mean, you can't do that. I might tell one. Can I tell one more story?
Sure.
My story was this. When I was a kid on a farm in Nebraska, weather is the biggest competition you got. When it rains too hard, the floods came, the dams break and take out the lower bottoms of corn. Maybe we had about 160 acres. Hail comes, takes out your wheat.
KATV Newswatch 7's Andrew Ozaki reports tonight from Dorchester, Nebraska.
Yep, this was knee-high 3 days ago.
A frustrating sight for Mike Nahabik as he walks through what's left of one of his cornfields Thursday.
I farm around 1,000 acres, and every acre got hit with hail.
Tuesday, hail the size of golf balls pounded his crops and home.
It was like someone hitting the side of the house with a baseball bat or a sledgehammer for about 10 to 12 minutes.
So we had all these things, but there was one thing that my dad would always say, we own the land. And we worked really hard on the farm. And did you enjoy it? Hell, I don't know if I enjoyed it. It ended up the way it was. But we don't own the land here anymore in small business. We're just simply fucked. You can't even afford to go try to get it back. Yeah. They just steal it from you and get away with it. And so that is so sickening, just sickening.
Shortly after the X-Trem, you had to file Chapter 11. Was that a direct result of going to China?
Actually, it was part of the direct result. I actually had to file Chapter 11 twice. Now, for you folks that may not know, a Chapter 11 is a reorganization chapter. It's not a 7 where you just walk out and they sell you off in an auction. That's not it. So I had 2 creditors committees I had to put up with and all of this. One was because of the lawsuits going on with Rose, but I just simply ran out of money. And the other one was not making the right decisions on merchandising it out through a foreign offshore manufacturer. And I want to point out one more thing, that offshore manufacturer that I trusted, we actually had contracts and agreements in the county in which they were in China, and they don't call it counties there, but it was with the governor of that particularly area, and it was a solid deal. It really was, and they did not break the agreement. I thought that was wonderful. It was the people that we sold to in the manufacturing of guitar business that broke our agreements.
Only because Floyd Rose came up again, I do want to say something that I don't think a lot of people know, and they should. There was actually a time when you and Floyd Rose developed a bridge together, and that would be the Floyd Rose Pro. And you and Dave Petchalot and Floyd and his engineer, you all got together, and we've got the blueprints hanging up over at the Artist Relations House. You know, big and bold right there, Floyd Rose Pro. It was made by APM, American Precision Metalworks, which is Kahler.
Orange County, California.
There was a Floyd Rose that was designed by Floyd and Kahler, made by Kahler.
Yep.
There was a possibility at one point that you two were going to maybe work towards joining forces.
Well, we talked about joining forces and being one company. Somehow that didn't go through because all the attorneys were a part of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I wish him the best. I like Floyd. Floyd did teach the world double locking, and if anybody knows Floyd and hears this podcast, you just tell him I said so.
And tell him that we would love to have him on.
Yeah, he ought to come on.
Absolutely love to have Floyd Rose on. I think that'd be just about the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, because we make Floyd Rose type bridges, and
we do.
And at the end of one of our ordeals, I was awarded the license to make Floyd Rose, and I did that. And I made many bridges for Fender under that license agreement. So I was one of the licensed people. Of course, the licenses are all expired now.
Yeah.
And so everybody and their brother is out there making them.
We did get something kind of good out of this whole China deal, although it's not what it originally intended to be, and that would be the hybrid. The hybrid, if I'm correct, the idea was to have all of the really, really good precision parts be American, and all of the you're going to have a hard time screwing this part up parts be from the Chinese things. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the reason we called it a hybrid.
Yeah,
because it's easy to make the mounting plate and the cam and the fine tuning. What we call a cage.
The cage.
Those items are, but all the precision parts and the saddles and things, then on the hybrid, we made in the United States. And all we had was the bigger parts that were made for the hybrid.
As the tech here, I want to let you guys all know right now, because I have to explain this all the time. If you were to take a brass roller 2300, which is our professional, and you were to put it right next to a hybrid, if they're the same color, they are almost the same bridge. The big difference is that the cam is right-handed only on the hybrid, and the hybrid is only brass cam, brass rollers, whereas the professional, you've got a choice of 3 different cams, 3 different rollers at no additional cost. And there's a stamp on it that says hybrid instead of professional. There are a lot of people that argue with me that that's not the same plate. That's the same exact plate. We just stamp some professional and some hybrid. Same plate, same exact plate.
We have to do that for the efficiency, and quantity dictates the price. You couldn't afford to have 2 different plates. Considering the fact that I used to mill all those plates, my God, 3/4 of the brass there all goes on a scrap barrel because you're only making a plate.
Yep.
So that's kind of what that situation is.
So
now they're 100% made in the USA.
Yeah, and they have been for quite some time. Such a long time that if you've got a new one, you don't even have to worry about it. But I would like to point this out. All of the parts on the hybrid, except for the cam, are identical to the ones that are on the professional. The only difference is that it's a 3-hole cam instead of a 5-hole cam. But if you were to drill that cam out and make it a 5-hole cam, it'd be the same exact thing as the professional. The big difference here is just that this is our mass-produced American piece, because we can kick them all out in one great big huge build, and then we have them in inventory, whereas the professionals are customized, and that's the way we want it. Because like you take Gary King, he has a brass cam and a steel rollers. He likes that sound. Yep. Now you take a Cantrell, it's brass on brass. He likes the brass with a brass roller. And no tip. And no tip on the arm. Yeah. And that's the same thing with Lita Ford. Yeah. It's the same thing. They're very customized to the harmonics, particularly, that you like. Now, if you don't need that kind of thing, well, then if you don't care about that, well, then get a hybrid. And they all have the same footprint. They all go on the same way. Yeah. Everything, intonating and all the rest of it is exactly the same. Yeah, that Lita Ford right behind you is actually steel on steel. Yep. So, but and I think the last one she got could have been steel. Yeah, Lita changes it up every now and then. She does. She really does. Whereas the other guys, they're really like, I'm locked in. This is what I like. But Lita, she'll go like, I'm feeling a little adventurous today. Let's try something different. Well, it's a very unique, good friend of ours, and I can just say that she comes to town here about every 4 or 5 months, 3 or 4 months. Even. Yeah. And plays at the Golden Nugget. At the Golden Nugget and other places as well. And Gary King was just in town. Gary King was just here. And a couple of the other people. Brian Waste. First time we met Ryan from Municipal Waste. My God, what a fun guy he was. Sure is. I'd just like to say this, that if any of you out there listen to this podcast, I would like to get connected with the government in some way about small businesses and how it just really, really impacts a small business. I see all the big businesses being represented. I would say, how about small business? Those people doing under $500,000 or $1 million a year, after they've paid all the legal expenses, all the tooling, and borrowed all their money from their family and everything they could, and then they get counterfeited and wiped out and copied and all the rest of it right out of the chute, we would say. Yeah. So if anybody of you know a meaningful senator or congressman in the U.S., let us know. Democrat or Republican or independent. I don't care. I will see that and raise you by saying, as somebody who is the marketing director, I think that Mike Rowe, because he offers a scholarship for American manufacturing, I would like to talk to Mike Rowe and eventually Joe Rogan, any of these other people with a larger platform, so that we can actually get it out there and plead the case, because most people don't see any further than their wallet, but you don't realize the damage you're doing, not only to everybody else around you, but ultimately to yourself. No, the big damage, I got to tell you, is like when we started out at 3 million in the early, and now we're somewhere around 1 million, maybe a little more than that. That really affects your family. And families go down the tube because of it. Divorces, kids that don't respect you. They say, what are you doing this for? All I can tell you, it's brutal to a family when this thing, because everybody can get so high and so happy that, oh my God, you can make this, you can do this, you can do all this, you put your heart and soul, and everybody in the family does. Well, you might be the head of it, and you know what you've done, but now you got to explain it to your kids and your wife and your aunt and an uncle and a grandfather or a grandmother. They haven't sat in your shoes. You can't hardly explain it, because it sounds like you're just a very dumb person, and you can't be. And it's too bad that happens. It's a family destroyer. That is a perfect way for us to go into the very last two questions. Lightning round, quick answers. Did the American Kahler employees have an opinion about manufacturing in China?
Oh, they sure did. Why in the hell are we going there? And then I would have to explain we can't make it cheap enough.
Yeah, and then the last one. Now, you've said many times that the Chinese people treated you right, and that the company that you contracted did a good job, and they were good people, even that the local politicians you had agreements with. But as somebody who grew up driving a tractor before your feet could legitimately reach the pedals.
That's right.
As somebody who worked the farm an equal amount of days that you went to school, and everybody understood that the farm kids sometimes wouldn't be in because they had to get out there because, you know, the planting or harvest or whatever was happening.
That's right.
Did it personally bother you to compromise your principles and manufacture in China?
It wasn't so much the principles of it as it was I had to do it or I'm out of business. Now, so you either get those OEM orders or you don't.
Yeah.
And you're either going to make a price point or you're not. Because what happens is 90% of the time say, well, we picked this because it's better. No, it's not. It's cheaper. And everybody, if one major OEM does it, then they all do it because they're all have certain price points. And that's what they're trying to make. I would say, yeah, I compromised my original thinking because I really did think that I own the land and I own shit because it can be just taken away from you in a minute.
So in closing, from my own personal Gen X point of view, I'd like to say this. When I went to high school, we had shop class, and typically the people that did really, really good in shop didn't do so hot in calculus or things like that, and vice versa. And it was nice to know that if you had a real aptitude for working in a mechanical way, that you were going to be all right. When I was in my early 20s, I had to make deliveries for a little bit, and I would drive through Seattle, and there was a building right by the Kingdome. That's how long ago it was. They didn't even think about destroying the Kingdome then, where they would have a marquee on the outside of this building that would say a guy's name and then how many years he was with the company. 35 years, 27 years, 40 years. That doesn't exist anymore. And after I saw a lot of outsourcing happen in the 90s in order for companies to increase their profits, not caring that they were displacing workers, I went to school and became a commercial deep sea diver, and I saw that we had all kinds of dirty tricks. We, meaning the third party companies, they would register the boats in Panama because it was cheaper and the inspection was far more lenient. They would get people to come out and work the deck, and because we were in international waters, they could get people from wherever in the world and pay them slave wages, and those people were happy to take that money. I know right here in Las Vegas, we have many companies right now that are completely China owned, and they actually import the people here on a work visa.
6 months.
6 months. And then when that 6 months is up, they swap them all out for more. That right there is a direct result to the amount of homelessness that you see right now. And if you have no way to earn a good living, then it's easy to lose hope, give up, go turn to drugs and be on the street. And I feel so strongly that it's important, not because I'm a Republican or a Democrat. I am neither. If I'm forced to say what my political affiliation is, it would be Zappa. Basically, Republicans are fine if you're a multimillionaire, and the Democrats are fair if all you own is what you wear. So what I'm trying to say here is that this is not trying to do something out of greed for America's sake. This is a wake-up call that we should have saw a long time ago. We were trying to be international UNICEF for all people, and it wound up destroying our citizens. And I think that any country, I don't care what country, should put their citizens before anybody else.
All I can say to that is this. I've spent my life at this. I'm, over 60 years into that, and I'm going to be 87, and I can just tell you that I love the people that have worked with me all through this whole journey. And when I see that my own employees that have worked for so long can't stay and keep doing what they want to do because we can't sell our product because we've been fucking ripped off by everybody in the world, that makes me want to cry. And because I've tried everything I can to keep this company going, and I can tell you we're doing okay, but it's very hard. We ought to be doing $10, $12 million, and we're doing well because we've been ripped off. And that's bullshit, and somebody's got to put an end to it. So I just like to say to that, if there's any senator or whatever out there, member of the House or whatever on the federal government, I'd like to hear from you. I don't care what your Democrat, Republican, I know I've said that twice, because we work so hard around here all the time. I don't have those kind of connections.
I imagine.
I just want one, and I just like people to know the small entrepreneur out there is really in bad shape on the world markets.
I imagine that if you were able to secure an audience with President Trump, you'd have a thing or two to say to him too.
Because no one ever has taken these kind of risks with this tariff stuff. And where it's going to end up, he seems to have in his head, hopefully it will. And we are all about America. It is. Keep our people working. They deserve to have, the kids deserve a good education. And if you're a U.S. citizen or even becoming one, more power to you. That's all I got to say. But we can do something about this. And I just speak for the little guy, really the little guy. So, yeah. And they can check out anybody can check out our complete history on the internet. Mm-hmm. They know where we're at. Our podcasts we do all the time. But this is just one time that I just going to have to talk about it.
I completely understand. And I think that that's probably all that there is to be said on this subject for now. So until next time, I'm Eddie Kernan.
Yeah, well, I'm Gary Kahler, and thank you for watching.
We'll see you next week.
You bet. Bye.